Have you ever felt different, even as a child? As if something deep inside you whispered that you didn't quite belong here. Not in a bad way, but in a way that felt almost sacred. Maybe you looked around and saw the world moving. People laughing, living, chasing things that never made sense to you. And somewhere within you, there was a stillness, a knowing, a question that echoed silently. Why do I feel like I'm not from here? You weren't confused. You weren't broken. What you were was marked by something far greater than what this world can explain. Marked by the unseen hand of the divine. Before you even had the words to speak it, from the very beginning, from your very first breath, your life was different. Not by accident, not by coincidence, but by sacred design. And today, you're finally going to understand why. Because in this video, we are going to peel back the veil that hides your true identity. We're going to uncover the mysteries buried in your childhood. The small, subtle, powerful signs that the world ignored, but heaven never did. You're not watching this by chance. You were guided here. Because it's time. Time to remember what your soul already knows. You are not ordinary. You are not random. You were chosen, not chosen to blend in, but chosen to awaken, to walk paths others fear, to carry a light this world desperately needs. The signs were always there, but now you're going to see them with new eyes, through divine perspective, through the lens of truth, because today, everything changes. Today, you'll no longer doubt who you are. You'll feel it in your bones. You'll remember. And once you do, there's no going back. So stay with me. Every second of this video matters. Every sign we reveal will light up another part of your soul. And by the end, you won't just feel chosen. You'll know it. If your spirit already feels this fire, if something inside you is awakening as I speak, then pause for a second. Hit that like button right now. Subscribe if you haven't yet, because this journey is only beginning. And comment 99 below. Why? Because 9 in the spiritual realm symbolizes completion, spiritual awakening, and divine purpose. And when it's doubled, it means you are not just near your breakthrough, you are being called into it. Let's begin. Have you ever walked into a room and felt like your presence was off script? Like you weren't supposed to play the role everyone else was so comfortable in? As a child, maybe you watched the world move around you with wide, questioning eyes. The games the other kids played, the conversations they had, the things they chased, they just didn't feel right to you. Not because you couldn't understand them, but because something in you wouldn't. From the earliest days, you noticed things others didn't. You felt things deeper, laughed less. But when you did, it was real. Cried more, but for reasons no one else seemed to see. And maybe you tried to fit in. You really tried. You mimicked, adapted, even forced yourself into the mold. But it never held. The jokes didn't feel funny. The rules didn't make sense. The masks everyone wore, you could see right through them. And so, somewhere along the way, you stopped trying. Not out of defeat, but out of truth. Because something inside whispered, you weren't made for this noise. You weren't rebellious. You were remembering. You weren't detached. You were preserved. This wasn't loneliness. This wasn't awkwardness. This was sacred separation. The chosen are hidden early, not because they are less, but because they carry more. You see, when heaven assigns someone a divine purpose, it often cloaks them in misunderstanding. People don't get you, not because you're too strange, but because your frequency is not from here. You vibrate on a wavelength not built by this world. You are tuned to a voice others can't hear. You are moved by a spirit others ignore. So of course you didn't belong. Of course the playground felt foreign. Of course the classroom bored your soul. Of course your family didn't always understand you. You were born into this realm, but not from it. Your soul came through with memories, codes, wisdom. Things you couldn't explain but couldn't unfeel either. And here's the mystery most never understand. That deep ache of not belonging is actually confirmation that you were never supposed to, because the chosen are not here to fit in. They are here to break patterns, to interrupt generational noise, to wake up sleeping bloodlines, to become the first light in places filled with shadows for centuries. That's why you felt it, even as a child. That ache wasn't emptiness, it was expansion, the space between who you were told to be and who you were born to become. And the world will try to shrink you, to label you, to silence you, but deep down you've always known you weren't meant to be like them. You were meant to become the one they needed and never had. So the next time you feel like you don't belong, remember, it's not rejection, it's redirection, it's recalibration. It's your spirit, staying loyal to the blueprint heaven wrote for you. Now, listen closely, because the next sign is even more mysterious and almost always misunderstood. It's something most people are told is a weakness, but in reality, it's one of your most powerful spiritual weapons. Don't blink. We're just getting started. They called you too sensitive, said you were too emotional, told you to toughen up, to stop overreacting, to grow a thicker skin. But what they didn't realize is that what they saw as weakness was actually your greatest divine weapon. From the very beginning, your heart responded to more than just words. It felt vibrations. It absorbed atmospheres. You didn't just see when someone was upset. You carried it in your body like it was your own pain. You walked into rooms and felt strange heaviness without explanation. Your body would tense, your spirit would contract, and you wouldn't know why. But it wasn't paranoia, it wasn't anxiety, it was spiritual discernment. You were detecting energy that others were completely blind to. You were hearing silent screams behind forced smiles. You were seeing the storm behind someone's calm eyes. You were born not just with empathy, but with spiritual sonar. Because chosen ones, real chosen ones, aren't chosen to dominate. They're chosen to heal, and healing can only happen through deep connection. That's why your heart breaks so easily. Not because you're fragile, but because you're open, and an open spirit becomes a bridge between worlds. You didn't just feel your own pain. You felt theirs, your friend's heartbreak, your teacher's sadness. Even strangers on the street, you noticed the sadness in their eyes before they even spoke, and that overwhelmed you, didn't it? You didn't know what to do with all that emotion. So sometimes you hid, you retreated, you became quiet. Not because you were shy, but because you were overloaded. You weren't designed for shallow interactions. You weren't created for surface-level noise. You were sent here to feel on a cosmic level. Because your soul isn't just human. It's deeply attuned to spiritual frequencies that can't be explained, only experienced. And that's why you couldn't stand cruelty, or lies, or fake people. Even as a child, you could spot deception before it unfolded. You just knew. You knew when someone wasn't telling the truth. You knew when someone was hurting, even if they said they were fine. You felt the storm behind their eyes, and it broke you. Because you didn't just notice it, you carried it. But here's the truth most never hear. That sensitivity is not a flaw. It's not weakness. It's a divine interface. It's the tool the Creator placed in you to guide you into your purpose. Because you weren't sent here to move like the rest. You were sent here to feel, to sense, to discern, and to transform. Your mission will require you to walk into dark places and not be fooled by the light. To sense danger where others only see charm. To feel truth even when words lie. Your emotional depth isn't baggage, it's radar. Your sensitivity isn't damage, it's design. And yes, it hurts. Yes, it's heavy. Yes, sometimes it feels like a curse. But listen carefully. The weight you feel is the price of carrying light. And you were born with shoulders that can carry what others cannot. This is why you've always been drawn to broken people. Why you've always wanted to fix what's falling apart. Why your love is so intense, so overwhelming, so healing. Because inside of you is an energy that doesn't just observe the world. It intervenes. It changes the room. It transforms the atmosphere. And the day you stop apologizing for your sensitivity is the day you begin to step fully into your power. Because the world doesn't need more numb people. It doesn't need more cold logic. It needs those who can feel deeply and still stand strong. And that is you. But we're only beginning to unlock the layers of your calling. Because next, we're going into something even deeper. Something that connects your soul to realms beyond this one. And chances are, you've already experienced it. In ways no one around you could explain. Dreams, visions, warnings, messages that came before you had words. What if your childhood imagination wasn't imagination at all? Stay with me. What comes next may finally explain what you've felt your whole life. There's something you've always known. But maybe you didn't have the words to explain it. Maybe you didn't think anyone else would understand. So you kept it quiet, buried it beneath maybe it was just a dream. Or maybe it's just my imagination. But let me ask you something. Why did those dreams feel more real than reality? Why did you wake up with a heart pounding, as if you had just lived something you couldn't forget? Why did your spirit feel like it traveled, like it remembered, like it received something sacred? Because it did. You see, chosen ones don't just walk through the world. They listen differently. They see beyond the surface. And from a very young age, they are visited by glimpses of the unseen. Your dreams weren't just mental static. They were divine downloads, blueprints, warnings, revelations. That night, you dreamt of a place you'd never been. And years later, you stood in it. That moment when a face you didn't know appeared to you in a dream, and then crossed your path in real life. Or the countless times you woke up shaken, certain that something real had just taken place. Those were not random. They were spiritual transmissions. Heaven has always had your line open. You just didn't know how tuned in you already were, and then there's your intuition. That inner voice. That silent whisper that rises up in moments no one else thinks twice about. It told you not to trust someone, even when they were smiling. It told you to stay home, only for you to find out something went wrong where you were supposed to go. It guided you towards someone, and that person ended up needing you more than they could say. How many times did you feel something, and then it happened? How many times did you just know, without being told? That's not luck. That's not coincidence. That's divine frequency. Chosen souls are wired differently. They don't need external proof, because the truth lives inside them. They don't just analyze, they feel. They don't just hope, they sense. You were given this gift because your path requires more than sight. It requires vision. It requires the ability to move even when the path isn't clear to others. It requires courage to trust the invisible. And here's the powerful truth. God speaks in many ways, through signs, through nature, through people. But for those he calls early, he speaks from within. He speaks through dreams, through symbols, through subtle impressions in the soul. And he does it early, because your journey requires that you learn to walk by more than what your eyes can see. That dream you had at 5 years old that never left you, that wasn't your imagination. It was a seed, a memory from a place your spirit remembers even if your mind does not. The visions you had of light, of danger, of beauty, of war. They weren't random. They were messages, missions, instructions. You were being trained even while you slept, and the dreams that left you crying, sweating, or filled with peace. They were spiritual experiences, waking you up to who you truly are. So many chosen ones are misdiagnosed. They're told they're too dreamy, too detached, too sensitive. But they are receiving insight from a higher source. And here's something deeper. Every time you doubted your intuition, every time you went against it, you paid the price, didn't you? Not because you were being punished, but because ignoring divine instruction has consequences. The more you listen, the louder it becomes. The more you trust it, the clearer your path becomes. And this is where many get lost. They think hearing God requires thunder and lightning. But for the chosen, it starts with a whisper in the dream, a flicker in the heart, a tug in the spirit. And the earlier you recognize it, the sooner you begin to walk in the power that was always inside you. You are not just intuitive. You are prophetic. You are not just sensitive. You are connected, because long before you knew how to pray, long before you knew what being chosen even meant, heaven was already speaking, already guiding, already preparing you. And now, it's time to remember what those dreams were pointing to. It's time to listen, not just with your ears, but with your soul. Because next, we're stepping into something even more sacred, a sign that not only confirms your calling, but explains why your childhood was filled with such intensity, contrast, and inner fire. Get ready. This next part will unlock something you may have buried, but once it's remembered, you'll never be the same again. Let's get honest. There's something inside you that's never gone quiet, even in your darkest hours, even when nothing made sense, even when everyone else seemed content with the ordinary. And you were stuck wondering why none of it ever felt enough. You felt it, haven't you? That pull, that fire, that strange, unshakable sense that your life is meant for something more. Not just survival, not just routines, not just going through the motions, but mission, impact, a sacred task you haven't fully seen but deeply feel, and yet it's confusing. Because that purpose isn't always clear. You don't always know the what or the when. Only that your heart beats louder when you think about change, truth, justice, healing. Only that your spirit aches when you see suffering, injustice, or wasted potential. You were never meant to live a small life. But the pain is, the vision has always felt just out of reach. You knew even as a child that there was more, but you couldn't prove it. You couldn't explain why school bored you, why playing by the rules felt suffocating, why everyone else seemed satisfied with answers you couldn't accept, because your spirit wasn't here to blend in. It was born to wake others up, and that kind of calling doesn't come with a roadmap. It comes with fire. And here's what most people don't understand. Having a divine purpose doesn't mean you'll always feel certain. It means you'll always feel restless when you're not aligned with it. It means you'll keep searching, keep questioning, keep burning, even if you don't know where it's leading. And that restlessness, that ache, that deep dissatisfaction with a normal life, it's not failure, it's not confusion, it's not weakness. It's your spirit resisting confinement. God plants purpose like a seed, buried deep in the soil of your soul. And before it grows, it stirs, it stretches, it breaks the ground. That's what you've been feeling your whole life. You weren't lost, you were germinating. You weren't broken, you were breaking through the limitations placed on you by a world that never understood your design. You see, the chosen don't get a blueprint first. They get a burden, a feeling, a silent urgency that says, you're not here just to exist. You're here to shift something. That's why average conversations drain you, why meaningless work exhausts you, why fake relationships make your spirit shrink. Because your soul knows. You've walked through rooms and felt the energy change. You've stood in silence and carried the weight of others' pain. You've had moments, quiet, mysterious moments, where time seemed to pause and something inside whispered, "This isn't all there is." You were right. It's not. You were marked for something eternal. And the restlessness you've felt? It's not a flaw. It's a homing signal. It's heaven calling you forward, even when your mind doesn't have the details. And yes, the waiting hurts. Yes, the process is long. But every delay has been preparation. Every detour has been training. Because chosen ones aren't just called, they're crafted, shaped through fire, refined through pressure, awakened through solitude. And if you're still breathing, still searching, still carrying that flame, it means your purpose hasn't been fulfilled yet. It means you are needed. There's a reason you couldn't settle, a reason you've outgrown. Places, jobs, even relationships. Not because you're impossible to please, but because your soul refuses to be caged by anything less than your divine assignment. And when that moment comes, when the path finally aligns, everything will make sense. Every delay will reveal its purpose. Every unanswered question will find its echo in the impact you create. But until then, that inner fire is your compass. It's the voice of eternity inside a temporary world. And you must protect it. Even when no one else understands. Even when your path looks different. Even when the world tries to distract you with comfort, conformity, or fear, you are not here to fit in. You are here to shift atmospheres, to break cycles, to awaken souls, to leave footprints in the spirit of humanity. So if you've ever felt like something was missing, if you've ever looked around and thought, "This isn't the life I was born for," that's not despair. That's destiny pulling you closer, and just when you think you've waited too long, just when you think it's too late, the breakthrough will come, and your purpose will rise like a lion. Not because it arrived, but because it was always inside you. But before that roar comes the silence, the stillness, the tension of becoming. And it's in that space that the next sign begins to unfold. A sign that might explain why your life has been filled with tests, trials, and spiritual attacks since the very beginning. What if your struggles weren't punishment, but proof of what you carry? Stay with me. Because next, we're going to uncover something most people never talk about. But once you see it, you'll finally understand why your journey has felt so different. Let's speak truth, the kind no one likes to admit out loud. If you were chosen, your childhood probably didn't feel blessed. It didn't feel magical. It felt heavy, like you were born into a battle you never signed up for. While others were learning how to ride bikes and play games, you were learning how to survive, how to pick up broken pieces without cutting your soul, how to smile through pain so others wouldn't ask too many questions. You were young, but you were already carrying the weight of things no child should carry. Pain that wasn't yours. Responsibility that wasn't fair. Questions that had no answers. And maybe, just maybe, you thought you were cursed. Maybe you looked at your life and wondered, why me? Why did I have to go through this? But what if the pain was never meant to punish you? What if it was the sign, the unmistakable mark, that you were chosen for something greater? Because here's what most people don't know about the chosen ones. God doesn't raise warriors in comfort. He refines them in fire. And that fire, it starts early, before you even know who you are, before you understand what's being built inside you. You see, others learn through books and lessons, but the chosen, they learn through storms, through abandonment, through betrayal, through silence so loud it echoes in their soul. You were forged in places no one saw, in hospital rooms, in bedrooms filled with tears, in nights where you cried yourself to sleep, asking for someone, anyone, to just see you, to hear you, to understand the storm inside you. But there's a reason for the intensity. The trials weren't random. They were targeted because the enemy knew what you were carrying before you did. He saw the light in you. He saw the impact you'd have if you ever awakened. So he tried to break you before you could bloom. But he failed. You're still here, still breathing, still searching, still becoming. And every challenge you faced, it didn't destroy you. It unlocked something. It awakened layers of strength, depth, empathy, and spiritual vision that comfort could never have taught you. Let that sink in. Your trauma did not define you. It refined you. You were being trained. You just didn't know it. Each heartbreak built your compassion. Each rejection sharpened your discernment. Each moment of loneliness made your connection with the divine even stronger. You weren't being punished. You were being positioned. Positioned for a calling that required you to be unshakable. Positioned for a purpose that demanded resilience, not comfort. Because when you carry light, you must be tested by darkness. And here's the most sacred truth. God only allows the deepest wounds to fall upon the strongest vessels. He trusted you with that weight, not to harm you, but because he knew you'd rise. And now you carry wisdom beyond your years. Now you see the world differently. Now you feel what others miss. Because you've lived what most people never talk about. And that experience, that raw spiritual scar tissue, is the very thing that makes you qualified to lead, to heal, to awaken. Chosen ones are not just survivors. They are alchemists. They turn pain into purpose, wounds into wisdom, shadows into light. So if your childhood was filled with storms, if your past feels like a battlefield, know this: you were never being destroyed. You were being destined. Every trial was spiritual training. Every loss carved space for deeper strength. Every broken moment taught your soul how to stand even when shaking. Because your purpose requires more than talent. It requires weight. It requires depth. It requires someone who has walked through hell and came out carrying heaven. And now, that same fire that once tried to consume you burns inside you. You carry power. You carry clarity. You carry truth. But here's the twist most people never see coming. All those battles you faced as a child, they were never about what happened to you. They were about what would happen through you once you awakened. And that awakening, it's already begun. But there's one final truth left to reveal. One sacred mystery that ties it all together. What if everything you've lived, the loneliness, the sensitivity, the dreams, the chaos, the pain, was proof of a divine orchestration, a cosmic design that chose you before you were even born? In the next and final part of this journey, we're going to bring all the pieces together. And when we do, you'll finally understand why you've always felt different. Stay with me. What you're about to hear could change everything. If your heart is pounding right now, if something deep inside you is trembling, not in fear but in recognition, then hear this. You were never meant to blend in. You were never meant to follow the script. You were never ordinary. You were marked. Marked by fire. Marked by wisdom. Marked by something ancient and eternal that lives in your bones. And that mark, it wasn't put there by chance. It was placed by the hands of the divine before your first breath, before the noise, before the chaos, before the world told you to dim your light. Your childhood was not random. It was the blueprint of your becoming, the sacred design of your soul's unfolding. Every moment you felt different. Every tear you hid. Every whisper you heard in the silence. They were signs. Echoes of a calling that this world was never meant to understand. Only you. You were not being broken. You were being built, not punished, but prepared. For a mission that requires everything you've lived, everything you've felt, Everything you've survived, you carry keys to healing, to awakening,